helps us understand what he's really dealing with. That he's trying to calm down and he's choosing that road before surgery. It's a smart thing to do, even if he's missing a couple slams.
Carlos Alcaraz is 23, yet his body seems trapped in a 5-set battle his medical staff cannot finish. A right wrist injury has kept him off court for months, erased tournaments, and turned every comeback date into a line call. The tragedy is not the pain, it is the silence around it. How does a Grand Slam champion go from lifting trophies to training at low intensity while fans are left guessing? His team says caution. The calendar says crisis. Tennis, naturally, keeps serving deadlines as if wrists come with a reset button. Very thoughtful. Now the US Open is closing in, but Alcaraz still needs more than a racket and brave words. He needs answers. Did his medical staff protect his future, or has this recovery become a heartbreaking medical mystery? Subscribe right now because we are uncovering the decisions that turned Alcaraz's injury into the match of his career. The story became serious in Barcelona, only days after Alcaraz had lost the Monte Carlo final to Jannik Sinner. Carlos entered his home event carrying huge expectations and a 22-3 record for the season. He had already won the Australian Open, completed the career Grand Slam, and added another trophy in Doha. His tennis looked ready for another violent clay court run. Then his right wrist interrupted the party like an umpire with terrible timing. During his opening match against Otto Virtanen, Alcaraz needed treatment around his forearm and wrist. He still won in straight sets, which made the problem look manageable from the outside. Plenty of champions receive treatment and continue. Fans could reasonably believe this was a small warning, perhaps a tight muscle or a brief irritation. The next day changed everything. Alcaraz withdrew before facing Tomas Machak and admitted the injury was more serious than his team first expected. That statement matters because it created the first crack in the medical story. Initial hope had quickly met a harsher diagnosis. Alcaraz returned home, began treatment, and said long-term health had to come first. Nobody can attack that choice. A wrist controls the serve, forehand, racket speed, and touch. For a right-handed player whose forehand can turn a normal rally into flying debris, even minor pain is a giant red flag. Madrid was the first target to disappear. The Home Masters event means emotion, ranking points, sponsor attention, and a crowd desperate to see Spain's biggest star. Yet medical tests did not provide the green light. Alcaraz withdrew and spoke about standing up stronger than before. Those words sounded brave, but brave words do not hit topspin. Rome soon fell off the schedule. Roland Garros followed, costing Carlos the chance to defend the title he had won in dramatic fashion. Queens and Wimbledon were then removed from the plan as recovery continued. Picture what that meant. A 7-time major champion watched the entire clay swing and grass season pass without him. His rivals collected matches, confidence, prize money, and ranking points. Carlos collected rehabilitation exercises. Apparently, the tennis calendar does not accept medical certificates. It simply moves on, sends another invoice, and awards your trophies to somebody else. Each withdrawal could be defended on medical grounds. Together, however, they formed a pattern that became impossible to ignore. April became May, May turned into June, June slipped into July. Reports said Alcaraz had returned to court, but early work was limited. At one stage, he trained using his left hand while the right wrist remained protected. Later, low-intensity hitting returned, yet competitive sets and practice matches were still missing. That difference is enormous. Striking controlled balls in practice is not the same as handling a 130-mile-per-hour serve at breakpoint. A player can look smooth during a short video while avoiding the exact movement that causes pain. Social media sees 10 clean forehands and declares the patient cured. Medical science rudely asks for more evidence. Here is where the tragedy with his medical staff becomes complicated. Caution may be saving Alcaraz, but silence is making that caution look suspicious. Fans were repeatedly given broad phrases. Recovery was progressing. Carlos was working hard. The team remained positive. A return would happen when he was ready. Those messages are safe, but they explain almost nothing. Was the tendon still inflamed? Could he strike at full power? Had doctors found structural damage? Was the delay expected, or had rehabilitation suffered a setback? The public received no clear scoreboard. Privacy matters, of course. Alcaraz does not owe strangers every scan, injection, or painful morning. His medical records are not bonus content for tennis fans. Still, elite sport runs on public schedules. When a player enters events, targets a return, and then withdraws again, the lack of detail creates its own story. Empty space never stays empty in tennis. Rumors move in and start decorating. Former British number 1 Greg Rusedski openly questioned whether the injury might be more serious than the camp had revealed. He wondered if there had been a tear or even a procedure. Those were questions, not confirmed facts, and that distinction must remain clear. Yet his main point landed hard. Everyone felt kept in the dark. Other voices defended the secrecy. Why tell future opponents which stroke hurts or how far recovery has progressed? Rafael Nadal often protected medical details until he was ready to compete. Tactical privacy can stop rivals from building a match plan around weakness. That argument makes sense. Unfortunately, secrecy also produces the exact drama teams claim they want to avoid. Imagine being the doctor asked to make that call. Approve a comeback too early, and one violent forehand could restart the injury. Delay too long, and the player loses rhythm, ranking ground, title defenses, and belief. Either choice can be attacked later by people who never saw the scan. Sports medicine is apparently the only job where millions of sofa specialists receive instant certification. Alcaraz's physical style makes the decision even harder. He does not win by standing still and guiding balls safely through the middle. His game depends on explosive acceleration, heavy racket head speed, sudden changes of direction, and fearless improvisation. The serve loads pressure through the hand, wrist, elbow, and shoulder. His forehand asks the joint to control huge force again and again. A wrist that is 90% ready may be completely unready for Carlos Alcaraz tennis. The Professional Tennis Players Association has warned about growing injury numbers and the strain caused by longer Masters events. Its analysis pointed to sharp increases in upper body and arm problems during 2026. That wider picture matters because Alcaraz is not recovering inside a quiet laboratory. He competes on a tour that stretches seasons, expands events, demands travel, and then acts shocked when bodies begin filing formal complaints. Players can technically choose where they compete, but the choice is never simple. Missing a Masters 1000 event means surrendering points, money, preparation, and momentum. Sponsors want visibility, tournaments want stars, broadcasters want rivalries, fans want magic. The medical team becomes the unpopular group saying no, while the entire tennis machine keeps asking for one more week. So blaming Alcaraz's staff for the injury would be cheap. They did not create the packed calendar, and there is no public proof that they mishandled his treatment. In fact, refusing to rush him may be the strongest evidence that they are doing their jobs. The real criticism concerns communication. When early optimism becomes a 4-month absence, the explanation must grow with the problem. A comeback date is not a promise, but repeated withdrawals without clarity turn hope into a cruel weekly prank. Canada offered another possible return point. That plan vanished too. Cincinnati then became the critical test because it provided hard-court matches before New York. Alcaraz had won the Cincinnati title in 2025, so the event carried both preparation value and painful memories of what he could do when healthy. His name remained connected to the field, while reports suggested the wrist had improved. Then the withdrawal arrived. Tournament director Bob Moran said everyone knew Carlos was doing everything possible to return and wished him well. It was polite, supportive, and completely reasonable. Yet the announcement confirmed the central problem. More than 4 months after Barcelona, the defending US Open champion still was not ready for competition. Now think about entering New York without a proper hard-court tune-up. Practice can rebuild technique, but tournament pressure exposes the truth. Timing changes under stress. Footwork becomes rushed. A player protects an injured area without realizing it. Confidence disappears when one forehand produces a warning sensation. Best-of-5 tennis then asks the body to repeat everything for hours, possibly across 7 matches. The US Open is also a terrible place to search for calm. New York brings noise, heat, late finishes, heavy balls, and crowds that can turn a first-round wobble into public theater. Opponents will test the wrist immediately. They will stretch rallies, attack the forehand, and make Carlos prove he can serve freely. Nobody on tour receives sympathy points. There is another emotional cost that statistics cannot show. Alcaraz built his identity around joy. He smiles during battles, feeds off crowds, and treats impossible points like invitations. Rehabilitation offers none of that reward. It is repetition without applause, progress measured in tiny steps, and constant fear that pain may return. For a young champion used to solving problems with talent, waiting can feel like losing without being allowed on court. His team must manage that mind as carefully as the tendon. A medical green light means little if Carlos remains afraid to release the forehand. Likewise, confidence without healing becomes dangerous. The staff are not merely repairing tissue. They are rebuilding trust between an athlete and the body that suddenly betrayed him. That is why the word tragedy fits, even if Alcaraz eventually returns. He reached the highest point of his career at the Australian Open, completing the set of all 4 majors at a record age. A few months later, he could not defend Roland Garros or compete at Wimbledon. Tennis gave him the full champion package: history, glory, and a plot twist nobody ordered. Meanwhile, Sinner moved back ahead in the rankings and continued shaping the rivalry from the other side of the net. Every week Carlos missed made the gap feel larger. Ranking points can be recovered, but rivalries depend on shared stages. Fans cannot enjoy Alcaraz against Sinner when one player is holding a racket and the other is holding a rehabilitation band. Still, rushing back merely to protect a rivalry would be foolish. The medical staff must ignore public impatience. A damaged wrist can become a career-changing problem if treated like a minor inconvenience. Juan Martín del Potro showed tennis how repeated wrist injuries can steal years from a brilliant player. That comparison does not predict Alcaraz's future, but it explains why doctors may choose extreme care. The harsh truth is simple: missing one US Open would hurt, but damaging the next 10 seasons would be unforgivable. Yet caution must come with honesty. If Carlos is unlikely to be ready, say the target has changed. If progress is slow, explain that recovery is slow. Nobody needs private details, but supporters can handle reality better than endless fog. Clear communication would also protect the medical staff from unfair claims. Silence leaves them standing at the net, while speculation fires passing shots from every direction. Medical recovery rarely follows a clean draw sheet. Inflammation can settle, then return when load increases. A player may hit comfortably for 30 minutes, but react badly the next morning. Doctors therefore raise intensity in stages. Ground strokes come before points. Points come before sets. Sets come before matches. Each step is a test, and the wrist can call a rain delay at any moment. So what should happen next? Alcaraz must return only when he can strike every shot without protection or fear. The team should resist pressure from rankings, sponsors, and defending champion status. At the same time, his camp should offer a direct update before New York. Not a vague promise. Not another cheerful training clip. Give supporters a realistic picture of whether 5-set tennis is medically possible. If the answer is no, withdrawing would be heartbreaking but responsible. New York will return next year. A healthy wrist might not return so easily after another setback. Should the answer be yes, expectations must remain controlled. Carlos may look rusty. His serve could lack speed. Early rounds might become ugly. That would not mean the recovery failed. It would mean professional tennis is difficult after 4 months away. Hope still exists because Alcaraz has already proved he can adapt. He has won majors on clay, grass, and hard courts. He has survived 5-set pressure, changed tactics during finals, and beaten every type of opponent. His greatest weapon is not only speed or power, it is his ability to learn quickly. Recovery now demands that same skill in a far less glamorous setting. The medical staff also deserve room to succeed without becoming villains. Their best work may look boring from outside. Another week of rest, another controlled session, another tournament rejected. Fans hate those choices because there is no trophy at the end. Yet the true trophy could be a wrist that still works when Alcaraz is 30. Now we reach match point. Did the medical staff lose control, or did they make the painful choices required to save a generational career? My view is direct. Keeping Alcaraz away while the wrist remains uncertain is correct. Letting the public believe each comeback is close without explaining repeated delays is not. Protection and transparency can exist together. His team does not need to reveal every scan, but it should stop allowing silence to become the loudest voice in the room. At 23, Carlos has time, yet his prime is happening now. Every missed slam matters. Each lost rivalry chapter matters. Every week without full training carries a cost. However, the biggest mistake would be treating urgency as medicine. Tennis history remembers champions who returned too early and paid for it long after the applause ended. The next decision may define more than the US Open. It could shape how Alcaraz schedules future seasons, how he manages his explosive style, and how much trust exists between him and the people treating him. One successful comeback can close this chapter. Another setback could turn every old question into an accusation. For now, the racket waits, New York approaches, and the medical staff hold the most important line call of Alcaraz's career. Was this long silence the price of protecting a champion, or evidence that his recovery became far more troubling than anyone admitted? Drop your verdict in the comments right now. Should Alcaraz risk returning for the US Open, or shut down his season until the wrist is completely ready? Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update. The trophies can wait. His future cannot.